The elevator doors slid open and I saw them through the glass. Her hand on his shoulder, his hand on her lower back. They didn't see me. Not yet. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Daniel, I'm 54 years old, and this is what really happened. I'd come by her office with a bag of takeout and a cheap bottle of red we used to lab about in the early years. It was one of those late Seattle evenings where the rain doesn't fall so much as hang in the air and cover everything with a quiet sheen. The lobby smelled like wet wool and lobby soap. I tapped my card at security. The guard nodded. Same guy, every night shift. Baseball game playing low on his phone. I remember thinking how soft the bag handles felt in my palm, how the paper was damp from the mist. The elevator hummed. Floor 12 blinked to life. I stepped out and saw them across the atrium glass. My wife Mara, laughing in a way she hadn't laughed with me in months. The man leaning toward her was taller than me and younger by a decade. Crisp haircut, expensive shoes. He wore the kind of confidence you can't buy but people keep trying to. I knew him before my brain admitted it. Nathan Cole, regional director. Her boss. I said nothing. There's a kind of quiet you learn as you get older. The quiet that makes other people talk. I waited behind a potted ficus like an idiot in a cheap spy movie. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Running late, don't wait up from Mara, smiley face. I could see her thumbs in my mind tapping that lie while she leaned into his aftershave. When they finally turned, I stepped out like I had just arrived. Surprise, I said, and held up the bag. The word felt like a small stone in my mouth. Mara froze for a beat too long. Dan, I didn't know you were coming. Nathan recalibrated fast. He offered a hand with a corporate smile. Nathan, he said, we've met at the holiday thing. Twice, I said, shaking his hand. I looked at my wife. You said you were staying late to help with the quarterly review. We were, she said. We are. We just took a break. Must be a good quarter. I said. Silence gathered like fog. Somewhere down the hall a copy machine chunked in Word, spitting pages into a tray. I smelled toner and the faint citrus bite of the cleaning spray the night crew used. People forget how loud paper can be when a room goes quiet. I brought dinner, I said, because sometimes the smartest thing is to play stupid. That place on 5th you like? She forced a smile. That's sweet, Dan. Nathan tapped his watch. I should grab a call, he said, already backing away. Great to see you. He left his cologne behind like a signature. I looked at Mira. We used to eat in the break room and complain about everyone, I said. Remember? Not now, she said. Please don't make a scene at my work. I'm not making a scene, I said. I'm making dinner. I lifted the bag. Then we can talk. We ate at a long table under recessed lights that made everything look cleaner than it was. I set out the greasy cartons and handed her chopsticks. Mara kept her eyes on the food like if she didn't look at me, none of it was happening. So, I said after a few bites, when the silence got too heavy to hold. Are you leaving me for him or just taking a test drive? Her jaw tightened. That's not fair. Okay, I said, nodding. What's fair? She put the chopsticks down, crossed her arms. We've been unhappy for a long time. Dan. We barely talk. You live in your spreadsheets. I feel invisible. I didn't know invisible came with a company title and a corner office. I said. Does HR know you're feeling seen? That's cheap, she whispered. Don't do that. I sat back. My chest felt like a fist. Then tell me the honest version. She looked past me to the window where the city was a wet painting. I'm moving out, she said. I've already found a place. How long have you been planning this? A while. Why now? She exhaled. 'Cause I got a promotion. It comes with a relocation package in a few months. I need a fresh start, Dan. And Nathan? It's none of your business anymore. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's a line, I said. You practice it? She stared at the table. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to be the bad guy, I said. That's not the same thing. I'm telling you like an adult, she said. We'll split things fairly. I talked to a lawyer. We can do mediation. That word lawyer landed like a stapler dropped from a height.
I nodded slowly.
Like I'd been waiting for it. In a way I had. You don't stay married 23 years without cataloging the places the floor might give. I'll pack some things tonight, she said. Just the essentials. I'll come back for the rest when you're not home. Why when I'm not home? Because it will be easier. For who? Dan. There was a tremor under my ribs that I didn't want her to hear, so I kept my voice level. You're moving into his place. No, she said quickly. Too quickly. It's complicated. It's always complicated until a lease is signed, I said. I cleaned up without saying much. She didn't stop me. That was its own answer. On the way out, Nathan happened to be in the hall. Funny how those coincidences multiply when people think they're invisible. He smiled like a man who knows he can buy his way out of awkwardness. Everything okay here? Great quarter, I said. You're ahead of projections. Big year, he said. His eyes flicked to Mara and back. He had the soft arrogance of someone who confused money with intelligence. If there's anything I can do, Dan. Sure, I said. You can get HR to email me your company's fraternization policy. You know, for my scrapbook. His smile tightened at the edges. We're all adults. That's what my wife said, I said. In the elevator down, I stared at the steel paneling and my reflection in it. Middle-aged, tired. The man you become when you spend years trying to be sensible. Some people call it justice, I said to nobody. I call it necessary. I didn't know yet what the it would be. I only knew two things. I was done begging for explanations, and I was very good at reading the fine print. Back home the house smelled like old coffee and lemon floor cleaner, because that's what it always smelled like when we were trying to keep life presentable. Our son Evan was on the East Coast for grad school and had texted earlier asking for a copy of his birth certificate for some paperwork. I found the file box in the hall closet, the one with every mortgage, appliance warranty, and insurance rider we'd ever signed. People make two kinds of mistakes in marriage, the ones that come from not paying attention, and the ones that come from believing attention will save you. I had a lot of both. I sat at the kitchen table and opened a blank legal pad because the act of making a list kept my hands from shaking. Work had taught me one thing. If you can't win with emotion, win with process. I'm a senior analyst in risk and compliance. People laugh at that job title until they need it. I know how policies break and where. I wrote headings: finances, joint accounts, mortgage, her car, insurance, health, dental, life, beneficiaries, employer policies, conflict of interest, fraternization, relocation agreements, digital phones, shared cloud, streaming accounts. Lease. Who signed what? That last one snagged my eye because she'd said I've already found a place. Moving is paperwork. Paperwork leaves fingerprints. I opened our joint email account, the one we kept for utilities and the dentist. Mara had set most provider emails to auto-forward to her work address, but the original still showed threads. I searched lease, rental, application, guarantor. Nothing obvious. I tried tenant, then move-in. A week back, a Gmail confirmation. Your rental application has been received. A private apartment building across town. The email included a link requiring login. I leaned back and closed my eyes. If she'd applied alone on a salary that wasn't huge, project manager, mid-level, she might not meet their ratio without excellent credit or a guarantor. My stomach turned. I opened my credit monitoring app. No inquiries. Okay. Either she'd found a smaller place. I remembered the way Nathan said big year. I pictured him signing things with a flourish. A guess took shape. If the building required a corporate guarantee, a relocation program could provide it. If the guarantee came from her employer, their HR department was on record. If she had a relationship with a superior that benefited her financially, housing that triggered the exact conflict of interest clause I had once trained a team on. People forget compliance trainings are written in blood. Someone's bruised career, someone's settlement check. I poured a glass of water and set it down too hard. The rim rang like a chime. If it were you, would you forgive or forget? I asked the empty kitchen. The refrigerator hummed in reply. I still can't decide if walking away was strength or cowardice. I wasn't walking away. Not yet. At midnight she came home to pack. She moved through the bedroom like we were roommates. No crying, no pleading, just the soft zip of suitcases and the rustle of hangers. She paused at the dresser and picked up the snow globe we bought in Chicago the year Evan was born. She turned it and the little flakes swirled around a skyline in miniature. You can take it, I said. She set it down like it burned. No, it's the house's. There won't be a house, I said. Just 2 apartments and a mortgage. She didn't argue. That hurt worse than anything. I'll leave the key on the hook, she said. Keep it, I said. You'll need to get the rest of your things. I'll text first. Of course you will, I said. She paused in the doorway with a tote over her shoulder. Dan, I know you. Please don't. Don't what? Don't make this ugly. It's already ugly, I said. I'm just deciding whether to turn on the lights. She swallowed and left. After she was gone, I opened my laptop and read her company's code of conduct like a bedtime story. It wasn't hard to find. I'd helped our firm benchmark policies 2 years back. Many companies share the same spine with different logos. There it was, under personal relationships in the workplace. Employees must disclose any romantic relationship with a direct or indirect supervisor. Failure to disclose may result in reassignment or termination. Under conflicts of interest, employees may not accept personal benefits that create the appearance of improper influence, including housing assistance, loans, or guarantees from vendors or internal sponsors not explicitly part of a published program. Under anti-retaliation, the company prohibits retaliation against any employee who makes a good faith report through the ethics hotline. Anonymous reports accepted. I clicked the whistleblower portal and read the FAQ like a man reading instructions for a fire extinguisher, while smoke gathers under the door. I didn't report anything. Not yet. It wasn't time. People think revenge is about the heat of the moment. It's not. It's about controlling the temperature. I needed the right facts, in the right order, delivered to the right place at a moment when the cost of denial would be greater than the cost of action. 2 days later, Mara texted asking for her passport from the safe. I need it for HR. She wrote, For HR? I replied, travel paperwork. Don't be like this. Time. Tomorrow morning, I'll stop by before work. Okay. When she showed up, she smelled like a new perfume she'd never worn around me. Something high-end. Something marketed to women who walk through airports without looking at the price of bottled water. I handed her the passport and a thin file with her documents. She lingered at the door like she had something else to say. Are you okay? She asked. No, I said. But it's not your problem anymore, right? That's not fair. You keep saying that word, I said. Did your lawyer teach it to you? Please don't talk to me like I'm the enemy. You're not the enemy, I said. You're a person who made choices. I'm a person who has to live with them. She looked tired then. For a second I saw the girl from the Chicago hotel, hair frizzy from the lake wind, laughing at a dripping deep dish slice. Then the second ended. I'll come for the rest Saturday, she said. Text first, I said. That afternoon at work, I sat with headphones on while a team from procurement reviewed a vendor list for a routine audit. I wasn't on the audit, but I knew the calendar, quarterly review, then a board packet. Mara's company was a client on a different file. Same industry, same trade group. If you know how to read public filings and internal calendars, you can tell when a company is desperate to keep quiet. They were in a push to launch a new product next quarter. The last thing they needed was a headline that could slip into the board minutes. I toggled to a browser and pulled public data, SEC filings, Glassdoor whispers, a local business journal. The journal had run a puff piece on Nathan 6 months back, the new face of efficient leadership. There was a photo of him in a cobalt suit with a watch that cost more than my first car. Buried in paragraph 8, a detail, Cole led a confidential vendor consolidation that shaved 7 figures from operating costs. Vendor consolidation is where careers go to die if you cut the wrong one. It also opens doors for quiet kickbacks if someone's sloppy or greedy. I dug deeper. State business registries are boring if you don't know what you're looking for. I do. You look for a paper trail with a pulse. There it was. A small logistics company formed last year by a holding entity with an address that traced to a service office used by a dozen shell firms. Not illegal, just convenient. The logistics company had exactly one large client listed in a braggy case study on a cheap website, Mara's employer. The registered agent was a name I didn't recognize. The agent's LinkedIn had 3 connections in common with Nathan. One of them a college friend who had liked every single promotion post Nathan had ever made. I sat very still and listened to my own breath. Was it a kickback scheme? Maybe. Was it provable? Not from a desk on my lunch hour. But I didn't need to prove anything yet. I needed the right questions that would make the right people nervous enough to do the proving for me. Saturday came. Myra texted. Here in 10. I had boxed her things with a kind of furious kindness. Folded sweaters, framed prints, the mixer she used twice. When she arrived, a black SUV pulled up behind her, idling. Nathan stepped out in sunglasses like the sun had come out just for him. Really? I said, opening the door. He's helping me move the big stuff, she said. I told you. You told me a lot, I said. Come get your boxes. They moved through the house together, careful not to bump into photos. Nathan avoided looking at me. When he did, he smiled like he was meeting a vendor. Nice place. It was, I said. In the bedroom, he lifted a box and grunted. Heavy, he said. Books, I said. The things people read to avoid becoming cliches. He laughed like he thought I was kidding. Outside, he guided the box into the trunk and then turned. Look, Dan, he said, dropping his voice to the register men use when they think they're being honest. I know this is hard, but Mara's going to be okay. We'll make sure of it. I said. He didn't catch the danger in the word. Yes, there's a relocation package. It's all above board. Above board, I repeated. So, HR has the disclosure form, right? His mouth did a small involuntary thing that told me more than any file could. What disclosure? The one where a regional director acknowledges a relationship with a direct report and certifies no preferential treatment, I said. The one that keeps you out of ethics training videos. Mara appeared with another box. Dan, she warned. I'm just confirming process, I said. I'm a process guy. Nathan straightened. The sunglasses went back on like a shield. I don't have to explain anything to you. You're right, I said. You have to explain it to your ethics office. Or you will. Soon. He smirked. Are you threatening me? I'm reminding you, I said, that the elevator to the top floor moves faster when the cables are well greased. But it also drops quick if one pulley locks up. Policies are pulleys. I don't speak metaphor, he said. That's your first problem, I said. Mara slammed the trunk shut harder than necessary. Enough, she said. Dan, please. I stepped back and let them finish. They drove off with my wife's boxes and my house's silence. I stood in the doorway until their taillights were little red points swallowed by the street. That night I opened a new document and wrote 3 emails without sending them. One to HR asking hypotheticals about undisclosed relationships and corporate housing assistance. One to the ethics hotline with a question about vendor consolidation, shell companies and coincidental friendships. One to Mara, with nothing in it but the words, "You walked away. Remember that when there's nowhere to walk." I didn't send any of them. Instead, I went to bed and listened to the gutters. Rain finds every gap. So do consequences. On Monday, I got my twist. At 9:06 a.m., my bank app pinged an alert. New external transfer scheduled. Mara had moved $4,800 from our joint household account to her personal checking. Rent money. Likely. The memo line read, "First last, deposit." I called the bank because our account required dual authorization for transfers over $2,500. The bank had flagged it. The representative was polite. "We can cancel it if you did not authorize." "I don't authorize," I said. At 9:22 a.m. my phone rang. "Mara, did you cancel the transfer?" she said, skipping hello. "Yes." That was my deposit. It was our account. "This is childish." "This is policy," I said. "You wanted fair. This is what fair looks like in numbers." She was quiet for a long beat. "I have to make a move-in deadline. I'm sure your relocation package can help," I said. "If it's above board." "Stop it, Dan." "I'll stop when the paperwork's right," I said. "Tell HR everything. It'll be easier." "You wouldn't," she said, but something in her voice said she knew better. "I'll do what's necessary," I said. There was another silence. Then small. "I don't have the relocation yet." "Why not?" I asked, even though I already had a guess. "It's tied to my manager's approval," she said. "He submitted part of it, but there are steps." I pictured a form on a screen with fields that needed boxes checked. Disclosure acknowledged. Relationship managed. Conflict mitigation plan. I pictured Nathan hovering his cursor over a checkbox and deciding he could solve it with charm later. I pictured later arriving, uncharmed. "What happens if HR looks before he finishes the steps?" I asked. "Don't," she said. "Please." I didn't answer. After we hung up, I opened the ethics portal. The form asked for names, dates, and a description. I typed slowly. I used no adjectives I couldn't defend. I included a link to the logistics shells registration, and the puff piece mentioning the consolidation. I did not accuse. I asked questions that required answers. The kind that become expensive to ignore when auditors and directors start CCing each other. I didn't hit submit. Not yet. Timing is everything. That afternoon, a message slid into my work inbox from an old colleague, Jenna, now in HR at Mara's company. Subject line, hypothetical. Body, If someone needed to understand our fraternization policy, what would you tell them? Asking for a friend. A winking emoji. But forced. I stared at the screen. Jenna and I had never traded emojis. The friend was me. Or Mara. Or Nathan. Or all three. It meant the winds were shifting. It meant someone upstairs had heard a rumor, and the rumor had a shadow. I wrote back. I'd tell them discretion is not the same as disclosure, and that the second one comes with a form. I paused, then added, and that if relocation housing touched the same file as performance evaluations, you've got a problem that won't stay small. I hit send. Then I opened the ethics portal again, took a breath and pressed submit. People think the twist is the act. It's not. The twist is the moment a person realizes the act can't be undone. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Not a text. A call from an unknown corporate number. Mr. Hayes? A woman said when I answered. Professional voice. Warm but not indulgent. This is Alicia from Corporate Ethics at Rainier Dynamics. We received a report. So fast? I said. We monitor the queue closely, she said. May we ask a few clarifying questions? And just to confirm, do you consent to being contacted? You may remain anonymous, but in complex cases it can help to speak. I consent, I said. My heart was very steady. And Alicia? Yes? Make sure you look at the relocation program approvals for employees and procurement and project management. Look for any approvals keyed by regional directors that correlate with undisclosed relationships. And pull the vendor list on last year's consolidation. One company in particular might not survive daylight. There was a tiny intake of breath. Not surprise. Calculation. Understood, she said. We'll be in touch. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. For the first time since the elevator doors opened on that glass atrium, I felt something like air expanded my chest. The rain had stopped. Sun came through the blinds in thin, dusty lines. I stood, walked to the window, and lifted a slat with my finger. Across the street, a neighbor's kid rode a scooter in circles over and over, tracing the same loop until he could do it, without thinking. That's what marriage had been for me at the end. A loop I could ride with my eyes closed. The pavement never changed. The sidewalk did. At 5:11 p.m. my phone lit with a text from Mara. Did you talk to anyone at my company? I looked at the words. I thought of all the times we had chosen silence to keep the peace. I reported a policy concern through the ethics hotline. I replied. They may contact you. Be truthful. Thoughts bubbled, stopped, started again. Then why are you doing this to me? I typed, erased, typed again. I'm not doing anything to you. I wrote. I'm doing something about him. And about what's right. You can still choose where you stand. This time there were no dots. I put the phone down and went to the kitchen. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet you want to fill with clatter just to prove you're not the only thing alive. I made coffee. I didn't need and stood in the smell of it until it reminded me that I was still here, that grief and strategy can live in the same room. That night, a final ping. An email from Alicia at Ethics with a single sentence. Thank you for your cooperation. We have initiated an inquiry, and a securely attached notice acknowledging anti-retaliation protections. I smiled. Not because it guaranteed anything, because it meant the pulley had engaged. I put the snow globe from Chicago in the center of the kitchen table and shook it. The flakes swirled around the skyline and settled slowly. The city emerging clean again like it always would after the water receded. The next morning there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting. I opened it to find Nathan. No sunglasses. No SUV, just the cobalt suit and a man who didn't look entirely sure of his footing. We need to talk, he said, pushing past the threshold as if he still owned every room he entered. I let the door swing shut behind him. Sure, I said. Let's talk about forms. His jaw flexed. You think you can drag me down because you can't keep your wife interested? That's what you heard, I said. Funny. What I said was disclosure is a form, and right now your signature is nowhere. He stepped closer, trying to fill the kitchen with himself. Call off whatever you started, or I'll make sure Mara's transition gets difficult. I looked at him for a long count. Then I smiled, a small thing I'd been saving. Thank you, I said softly. For what? He snapped. For making threats in my kitchen, I said. And I tapped the phone on the table where the voice recorder app ran, the waveform scrolling like a heartbeat. For a second his face emptied of thought. Then the mask tried to return. You can't. It's a one-party consent state, I said. You really should have taken that ethics training. He backed away a half step, recalculating angles that weren't there. I didn't move. Neither did the snow globe. The flakes kept falling, softly on a city made of plastic and memory. He swallowed. What do you want? Me? I said, and my voice was the calmest it had been in weeks. I want process. He stared. When he finally spoke, his voice was smaller. What does that mean? It means you disclose, I said, to HR, to ethics, fully. It means you recuse yourself from any decision touching my wife's role or relocation. It means you gather your emails and your approvals and you hand them over. And then, Nathan, you wait like everyone else does when the pulley is moving. He tried to smile again and couldn't find it. And if I don't, then we let gravity do what it's always done, I said, and we see what breaks first. He looked at the phone. He looked at me. Then finally he looked at the door. You'll regret this, he said, but it sounded like a line he'd used on people who had less to lose. Some people call it justice, I said again. Not for him this time. I call it necessary. He left without slamming anything. That was new for him. I watched his back through the window as he moved to the sidewalk, phone already at his ear, mouth forming words he'd never put in writing. I pressed stop on the recorder. The waveform froze mid-syllable. I saved the file with a date and a label that made me smile in a way that hurt my face. Then I emailed it to myself to a cloud folder with a boring name, and to Alicia at Ethics with a single line, additional context, as requested. I didn't know it yet, but by the time the sun went down, Nathan would learn a word he'd never had to face before: suspension. And by the end of the week, Mara would learn another vacancy. They'd put him on administrative leave pending investigation. Corporate words. Clean. Bloodless. I heard it first from Jenna, in a text that didn't use his name, then from Alicia on a call that did. Mr. Cole has been placed on temporary leave, she said, for the integrity of the process. Process his integrity now? I said. Must be a big quarter. She didn't bite. We've also reassigned your wife to a different reporting line while we review disclosures. She's not under investigation at this time. At this time, I repeated like a man tasting a spice he knows will burn later. Understood. The house felt different that afternoon. The silence wasn't empty. It had edges. I made soup I didn't want and stirred it until it thickened. The spoon scraping the pot in a slow, steady rhythm that sounded like a metronome for a life I hadn't chosen. Steam fogged my glasses. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and stock. Small mercies like heat on a cold day. At 6:14 p.m. Mara called. No text. A call. Can we talk? She asked. We're already doing it, I said. In person. Why? Because, she said, and then she stopped talking. I let the silence do what it does. Okay, I said finally. 30 minutes. The doorbell rang in 25. When I opened it, the first thing I noticed wasn't her face. It was the smell. Rain in her hair, that expensive perfume now a little sour at the edges like it had been sprayed to cover something else. She stood on the porch with a canvas tote, not the boxy leather she carried out of here. They suspended Nathan, she said without hello. I heard, I said. Her eyes searched my face for something she couldn't name. Did you? I reported a policy concern, I said. Alicia called it that. A concern. Gravity did the rest. She stepped in, dripping on the mat. I don't know what's happening, she said, voice small. HR asked me to bring in my texts. They want to review my email. They said they're not accusing me of anything, but they asked you to sign a consent, I said. A nice tidy one-page form that says you're voluntarily providing access to your devices so they can verify the timeline. I know the form. She swallowed. They said if I don't, they'll assume the worst. Assume, I said. Corporate for we already do. I didn't take anything, she said, and she meant money. I didn't do the other thing either. Which other thing? I asked. Even though I knew. Help Nathan with vendors, she said. I don't even work in procurement. I know, I said. But you benefited from the man who did. Benefit is a fun word in policies. It makes flowers out of weeds. She put the tote on a chair and rubbed her arms like she was cold. They also froze my relocation. Of course they did, I said. That program hangs off the same hook as his approval. Hooks bend when weight shifts. I can't move into the apartment without that, she said. And there it was, the practical truth. The building called, the guarantee was withdrawn. I kept my face still. Inside something loosened. Not triumph. Not yet. Something like a knot giving way under steady pressure. Did you sign the lease? An application? Not a lease. They said my deposit is on hold until I clear the guarantee or show funds myself. Show funds, I said. like a magician. Don't do that, she said. Please don't be cruel. I'm tired. Cruel would have been silence, I said. Cruel is letting you march into a buzzsaw because I wanted to watch. She looked at me, and there was anger under the tired. You wanted this, she said. You wanted to take him down. I wanted truth, I said. If it takes someone down, that's gravity, not me. This is going to ruin my job, she whispered. It might, I said. Or it might save it. Depends on how fast you stop lying about what it is. I didn't lie, she said. You didn't disclose, I said. Disclose is honesty with a timestamp. She leaned against the counter like the house could hold her up. I need a place to sleep, she said finally. Just for a few nights. I'll stay in the guest room. I'll be out of your way. There it was. A request shaped like a small emergency. Old reflexes moved in me. The ones that made me fix things, make up couches, find spare blankets. I could feel the words I wanted to say gathering. Sure, of course, this is still your home, but those were the words that had kept me blind in the first place. This house is a place I can breathe, I said slowly. If you stay, you respect that. Guest room, door closed. We don't play married. We don't touch money. We don't talk like I'm the pit stop you use between lanes. I don't want pity, she said. Good, I said. This isn't pity, it's rent-free due to history, payable in respect. She nodded once. Okay. And one more thing, I said. You talk to HR tomorrow. Fully. Your words, not his. If you lie for him under my roof, you can find another roof. She stared at me, and for a heartbeat I saw the person who used to choose me on purpose, not out of habit. Okay, she said again. We moved like roommates. I showed her the guest room with the old comforter, and the lamp with the scratch on the shade where the cat we never got had never clawed it. She put the tote down and sat on the edge of the bed. I stood in the doorway because it felt dangerous to cross the threshold. Do you hate me? She asked. I don't know, I said. Hate is a lot of energy. I'm tired too. I thought you'd yell, she said. You're so calm. Quiet isn't forgiveness, I said. It's strategy. That night, I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling fan. The blades made a small woof at the same point each rotation, a wobble no one ever fixed because it wasn't enough to matter. I listened to her footsteps down the hall, to the soft click of the guest room switch, to the house remembering what it sounded like when two people slept under one roof without touching. In the morning I woke to the smell of coffee I didn't brew. Mara stood at the counter in one of my old sweatshirts, hair tied up, face bare. For a second, it was 5 years ago, and nothing had broken yet. Then I have to be at HR by 9, she said. They sent a calendar invite. With legal. Eat, I said. You'll shake if you don't. I'm already shaking, she said, and she held her hand out like she was making a joke. It trembled anyway. At 8:32 her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and didn't show me, but I saw the name reflected in the kettle's curve. Nathan. She put it down, let it ring out. Then she typed. Can't talk. HR. 3 words. Put a needle in my chest and pulled a thread. Good, I said. Let him stew. At 8:47 there was a knock at the door, not the polite double tap of a neighbor, the impatient rap of a man who never waited. I opened it to find Nathan on the porch, jaw tight, tie slightly off center. He smelled like aftershave and sleep you put on quickly. We're leaving, he said tomorrow over my shoulder, as if I were a coat rack. Don't talk to them without counsel. I'm talking to them, she said from behind me, with or without you. He tried to step in. I didn't move. The doorway has a way of reminding people about physics. Dan, he said, like we were colleagues. This is between 2 employees and their employer. This is my door, I said. Everything between it and the sidewalk is between me and gravity. He smirked. You're enjoying this? I'm taking notes, I said. Old habit. Mara stepped forward. Nathan, I'll call you after, she said, voice even. Please. His mouth opened on a protest, then closed on the sight of my phone in my hand. The quiet litany of self-preservation ran across his face. Porch neighbor, cameras, recordings. He stepped back a fraction. You're making a mistake, he said to her. They'll throw you under to save themselves. Maybe, she said, but I'll know I told the truth. He tried another tactic. If you sign their consent, they can see everything. I don't have anything to hide, she said. He looked at me. He does, he said. He's vindictive. He's trying to ruin us. Us is a big word for people who forgot forms, I said. He pointed a finger. A small involuntary jab that told me what kind of boy he'd been. "This isn't over." "I hope not," I said. "We just got to the good part." He left in the expensive, angry way too fast down the steps. A car door that closed like a slam without being one. Tires spit water when he pulled away. The sound followed me into the kitchen like a tail. At 8:59, Mara grabbed her coat. I watched her choose a pair of flats that wouldn't click on tile. "Wish me luck," she said. "I don't do luck," I said. "Do truth." She nodded and left. I cleaned. Not because the house needed it, but because my hands did. The rhythmic swipe of a cloth across the counter, the damp squeak of glass, the soft thud of drawers closing. Small sounds, small order in a day shaped by larger forces. The clock muttered at me. 9:20, 9:37, 10:05. At 10:28 my phone buzzed, but it wasn't her. It was Alicia. "We've concluded the initial interview," she said. "Thank you for your earlier cooperation." "How did it go?" I asked, and I knew she couldn't tell me. But I wanted to hear how a professional skirted truth. "Miss Hayes was candid," she said. "We appreciate that." "You said was," I said. "Past tense. Is she still employed?" "For now," Alicia said, and she let that hang. "We've also escalated a separate concern regarding procurement practices to our audit committee. They've engaged outside counsel." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Outside counsel," I said. "Someone serious. Allegations involving vendors and internal approvals require independence," she said, and then, "You should be aware of our anti-retaliation policy. If Miss Hayes experiences adverse actions tied to her cooperation, there are remedies." "She's afraid of losing her apartment," I said. "Not her job, not today." There was a small silence, the kind that says a person is choosing their next sentence with tweezers. "We can't control private landlords," she said. "But we control our processes." "Process is a pulley," I said. "I know." After we hung up, I stared at the snow globe on the table and turned it once, letting the flakes fall slow. "Some people call it justice," I said softly. "I call it necessary." The city came back into focus through plastic flurries. At noon, the front door opened. Mara stepped in and closed it behind her with care. Like noise could change the outcome. She leaned against it and shut her eyes. "Well?" I asked. "They know," she said. "About the relationship. About the relocation. About the vendor rumors." "Rumors?" I said. "They said it's an open question," she said. "They said the audit committee will look. They put me on paid leave while they sort out reporting lines and conflicts. I have to hand in my laptop by 3. "Paid leave," I said. "That buys time." "For what?" she asked. "To decide who you are in this," I said. "Witness, victim, co-conspirator. They'll let you choose for a minute. Then they'll choose for you." She stepped into the kitchen and looked at the snow globe like it could grant wishes. "They asked about you," she said. "Why you reported now. Why you didn't before." "What did you say?" I said I left you, she said, "and that you did the right thing anyway." I nodded. "That's a sentence you won't regret." She blinked and her eyes got wet in that way she hates. "I am regret," she said, and it wasn't melodrama. It was measurement. "Eat," I said again. "Protein." At 2:41 we drove to her office in separate cars. She went inside with an empty tote and came out with 2 full ones. The security guard watched like guards watch impassive, cataloging. Mara handed over her badge and her laptop at a folding table beside HR. The fluorescent lights hummed, paper moved. No one raised a voice. That's how most endings happen. Quietly clerical. Outside, the air tasted like rain and metal. A bus brake screeched somewhere down the block. Mara stood next to the trunk of her car with both hands on the rim, like she needed the cold to keep her from floating off. "Where do I go now?" she asked. "Guest room," I said, and I heard what it sounded like. "Mercy or bait." "For now." We drove home. She slept like a felled tree from 4 to 6, then woke up and stared at the ceiling like the answers were there, if she stared long enough. I made pasta and said nothing. She ate and said less. At 7:19 her phone buzzed again. Nathan again. She didn't pick up. He tried 3 times, then sent a text. "They want to see me tomorrow. Don't say anything else. You're safe if you keep quiet." She turned the screen to me, not for permission, but for punctuation. "What do I say?" she asked. "Nothing to him," I said. "To them. Everything." She typed, "Stop, don't contact me." Then she put the phone face down like a lid. At 8:03 a number I didn't recognize called me. "Mr. Hayes?" A man said, "This is Peter Langley with Warden Cole LLP. We represent Rainier Dynamics in an internal review. Do you have a moment to talk?" "Outside counsel," I said. That was fast. Time is of the essence. His voice had the crisp patience of someone who bills by the hour and never checks a clock. "We understand you may have information relevant to our inquiry. Would you be willing to speak with us tomorrow morning?" "Yes," I said. "At my office. Conference room." "Nah." "Excellent," he said. "Please preserve any documents or recordings related to the matter." "Already done," I said. "And counselor?" "Yes. You may want to pull the state registry for a logistics company formed last March and compare it to a vendor consolidation approved by a regional director in June. The connections aren't neat. That's the point." There was the same tiny intake of breath Alicia had made. Lawyers breathe the same way when they learn a new word. "Liability." "Duly noted," he said. After the call, I stood in the doorway of the guest room. Nara was awake, staring at the wall. "Outside counsel is looping in," I said. "They'll want me on record." "Will you give them the recording?" she asked. "Yes." She nodded once. "Okay. Then damn. Yeah. Thank you for not letting me lie," she said. "I almost did. I almost told them it started later, that it wasn't what it was." "Lies are mortgages," I said. "Payments come due." At 10:11 the house finally quieted. I washed 2 plates by hand because the dishwasher's pump had a noise and I didn't want noise. The water ran hot. Steam rose, my hands went pink. I thought about how stupidly human it is that heat can feel like safety. I slept and dreamed of elevators. In the dream the cables sang. Morning brought a sky the color of a file folder. I wore a suit I hadn't worn since Evan's graduation and felt like a kid playing at court. At the office, I booked a glass conference room and set my phone to DND. Peter Langley arrived with a junior associate, whose job was to type everything like it mattered. He shook my hand with clean, dry palms. "Thanks for making time," he said. "I like calendars," I said. "They keep people honest." We sat. They set a recorder on the table. I set mine next to it. That made the junior associate smile for the first time all morning. "Let's start with your relationship to the company," Peter said. "I'm a client-adjacent nobody," I said. "My wife works there." "Worked," he said, checking his notes. "Language," I said. "Process isn't over." He nodded. "Tell us what you observed." I told them everything I could defend. The glass atrium, the laugh, the hand on the back, the text that said "Don't wait up," while her hand was on a man who wasn't me. The relocation paperwork language I could quote because it's the same everywhere. The vendor shells with cute addresses. My questions, not my accusations. The recording in my kitchen where Nathan threatened to make her transition difficult. The one-party consent law. The date. The timestamp. Peter didn't interrupt much. When he did, it was to ask me to define words I knew he knew. Disclosure, recusal, guarantee. He wanted my version on tape, not because the dictionary had changed, because liability lives in version. After an hour, he closed his notebook. "You're good at this," he said. "I count other people's risks for a living," I said. "Then I go home and ignore my own." Or I did. He capped his pen. "We'll be in touch," he said. "Which is lawyer for both. Thank you and do not call us. We'll call you when it suits us." Out in the hall my phone vibrated like a caught bird. "Evan." I stepped into an alcove. "Hey buddy," I said. "How's school?" "Fine," he said. "Are you okay?" That was new. Usually kids that age answer questions like they were sentenced to. Today he asked first. "I'm breathing," I said. "How'd you hear?" "Mom called me last night," he said. "She was crying. She said you reported her boyfriend to HR." "Boyfriend," I said, tasting the word. "Is that what she called him?" "Dad," he said. And there was a warning in it, because he's my son, and learned tone before vocabulary. "She said she messed up. She also said you were decent." "Decent is the opposite of loud," I said. "I'm trying it." He exhaled. "Do you need me to come home?" "No," I said. "You need to go to class, and you need to not pick sides today. That'll come and you'll hate yourself for it. Give it time." He was quiet. "You sound old," he said. "I am," I said. "Tell me something good." He told me about a professor who wrote with chalk like it hurt the board, and a girl who hated the professor and loved the chalk, and a coffee shop that burned the beans on purpose because the city liked the smell. I listened. "There's a bed for you here," I said when he was done. "Same as always." "I know," he said. "Love you. Love you." I said, and I meant it like a fact. When I got home, the house smelled like laundry and cinnamon. Mara had baked something. She does that when she's afraid. I used the last of the flour, she said from the doorway like an apology. I can buy more. You won't be here long enough to need it, I said, and I kept my voice soft. She nodded. I looked at cheaper apartments, she said. They want proof of income and a clean letter from my employer. Paid leave isn't clean, I said. They also want a guarantor, she said, and then she said the thing she didn't want to. Could you? No, I said. I can't. Her head dropped a fraction. I had to try, she said. Trying is a verb better used on forms, I said. At 3:47 the twist arrived. Not in a call or a knock, but in a letter slid into my mailbox. A notice from the apartment building she'd applied to. Application withdrawn due to guarantee rescission and adverse information received. There was a line about deposits pending investigation, and a line about adverse information that made my skin prickle. What adverse information? I asked the heir. Mara read over my shoulder. Nathan promised them a corporate letter, she said. Voice flat. He must have called to pull it. And maybe he said something else. Retaliation, I said. And stupid. Can we fight it? She asked. Not with a building, I said. But we can with a company that just hired outside counsel. I snapped a photo of the letter and sent it to Alicia with 5 words. Retaliation risk from suspended manager. 10 minutes later, a reply, received. Thank you. We ate cinnamon bread that tasted like a memory of a house where people trusted each other. At 7:02, a number I didn't know sent a text. This is investigative reporter Hannah Lee with the Seattle Record. We're looking into vendor irregularities at Rainier Dynamics. May we speak? My chest went cold. I typed, no comment. Then I forwarded the text to Peter at Warden Cole with FYI, press sniffing. Maybe plug your leaks. He replied in 1 minute. Understood. Do not engage with media. Then, we appreciate your discretion. At 9:13, another text from a different unknown number. We know what you did. No signature. Trash level intimidation. I added it to a folder named Retaliation, because naming things makes them manageable. The house slept badly. The fan woofed. The pipes clicked. At 2:18 a.m., Mara cried softly behind the guest room door. I didn't go in. That's a sentence I will carry until I can't. I still can't decide if walking away was strength or cowardice. I whispered it to the ceiling, and the ceiling didn't answer. Morning brought the sound of a truck on the street. A dull engine note, persistent, like a refrigerator that never turns off. I looked out the window and saw a private process server stepping out of a van with a stack of envelopes. He looked at house numbers, then at ours, then at me. When I opened the door, he held out a manila with my name. Daniel Hayes? He asked. Yes. You've been served. He handed me a second envelope with Mara's name, and this one. Who from? I asked, though I could guess. He tapped the corner. Cole Nathan, he read through counsel. I opened mine. A cease and desist letter dressed up as a temporary restraining order application, full of phrases like tortious interference and defamation, alleging I had maliciously disseminated false allegations to third parties causing irreparable harm. It cited my call to ethics and the outside counsel interview as if truth were optional. Mara opened hers. Same. She laughed once, without humor. He's suing us, she said, for telling the truth. Paper tigers breathe the same as real ones, I said. They just burn faster. I emailed Peter a scan with your suspended man just filed for a TRO. See attached. His reply was immediate. We'll handle. Do not respond directly. At 11:40, Alicia called. We're aware of Mr. Cole's actions, she said. The company is not a party to his filing. Our anti-retaliation policy will apply if any of his actions affect employees or witnesses. We're also scheduling interviews with board members tomorrow. Board, I said. That's the police top. Yes, she said. And Mr. Hayes, please be careful. If you receive any threats, call the police. Threats are over, I said. He's writing them down. At 1:03, the biggest noise of the week. A decision letter from Rainier Dynamics Audit Committee to Nathan Cole, CC'd to Counsel and HR. A PDF so bland it could have been a grocery list. It said, effective immediately, you are terminated for cause for violations of the Code of Conduct, including failure to disclose a personal relationship with a subordinate and failure to recuse from decisions affecting that employee. We are referring matters concerning vendor relationships to the appropriate authorities. Mara read it and sat down hard on a chair like it had been pulled and then put back. He's fired, she said, sounding more surprised than relieved. He fired himself, I said. Gravity just wrote the letter. She stared at the screen. What about me? She asked. I scrolled. One more attachment. Effective immediately, Miss Mara Hayes is placed on unpaid administrative leave, pending the conclusion of the vendor investigation and a review of her failure to timely disclose a personal relationship that created the appearance of a conflict. My throat tightened. I looked up. She closed her eyes. Unpaid, she said. I can't pay anything. I felt the old reflex again. I let it pass under my skin like a wind and didn't move. We'll sort it, I said finally. But not by pretending nothing happened. She nodded, and her face was a map of two countries, regret and anger. I'll pack the guest room, she whispered. I won't put you in this. You're in it, I said. I'm already there. She didn't cry. She folded a sweater with precision. A tailor would admire. I'll go to a motel, she said. The cheap kind near the highway. I can sell a few things. The ring. No, I said, and I hated myself for how fast it came out. You don't pawn yourself. You earn this bed for a minute. Use it. She shook her head. I don't want you to see me like this. I already have, I said. You saw me like this too. You just called it boring. The doorbell rang again, small and polite. I opened it to find the landlord from the apartment building. The manager, not the process server, holding a clipboard and looking apologetic. Miss Hayes, he asked, peering around me. She's here, I said. What's this? He shifted from foot to foot. I'm sorry to come in person, he said. We received communication from a Mr. Cole's attorney indicating a potential fraudulent application. We also received, well, a call from a reporter. The building doesn't want involvement in anything litigious. He got spooked, I said. He had the decency to look ashamed. We're refunding half the deposit, he said, but we can't hold the unit. Maura stepped into the hall. You're canceling me, she said. I'm sorry, he said. She nodded and closed the door slowly, like she could buy time by making the motion gentle. She leaned her forehead against the wood and exhaled. What was that quote you used to like? I asked quietly. The one about storms? She didn't turn. I used to say you dance in the rain, she said. Turns out I forgot the steps. In the late afternoon, the house filled with the smell of wet wool, the kind of dampness you can't shake out, only wait through. I sat at the table with a legal pad and wrote a new list. File police report if threats escalate. Document every contact from Nathan. Budget. 1 income. Unknown duration. Talk to attorney about separation terms. Protect house. Look at selling the extra car. Ask Evan not to come home yet. I wrote, do not save her from consequences. Do not drown with her, and underlined it twice. Then I crossed it out and wrote, help without erasing. I don't know if I can do that. I'm trying. At 6:32 my phone buzzed. A notification from a local news app, the kind that eats rumors and excretes headlines. Regional exec fired amid vendor probe at Rainier Dynamics. No names. Not yet. A subhead. Sources cite conflict of interest, undisclosed relationship. I turned the phone to face down and listened to the house breathe. I thought the day had emptied itself. I was wrong. At 7:11, Mara's phone lit up with a number she didn't know. She answered because that's what you do when life is calling from random directions. Is this Miss Hayes? A man asked. His voice was official without being kind. This is Officer Delgado with Seattle PD. We have a report of harassment filed by a Mr. Nathan Cole, alleging you and your husband are stalking him and interfering with his housing. Mara's eyes flew to mine. She put the call on speaker. That's false, I said. We haven't contacted Mr. Cole except to tell him not to contact us. Delgado's tone didn't change. I'm required to make contact, he said. Consider this, that contact. If either of you approaches Mr. Cole at his residence or workplace, you may be subject to a protective order. You can call his employer, I said. He doesn't have one. There was a pause as the officer decided how much humor his evening could tolerate. Just passing along the message, he said. If you feel you're being harassed, you can file your own report. We will, I said. Thank you. After we hung up, the room felt smaller, like the walls had leaned in. Mara sat down and gripped the edge of the table with both hands. He's trying to make me the problem, she said. He's reminding us who he thinks he is, I said. A man who doesn't believe gravity applies. He'll learn. She stared at me. Do you ever get tired of being right? All the time, I said. But it beats the alternative. The last twist that night wasn't a letter or a call. It was a knock from someone who knocked like they owned nothing, and therefore feared nothing. I opened the door and found a woman I didn't recognize, mid-40s. Wind-tangled hair, worn denim jacket. She held a cardboard box. "Is Mara here?" she asked. "I'm Kayla." Mary stepped behind me. "Kay," she said, and her voice softened in a way it hadn't for me in weeks. "I didn't know you." Kayla lifted the box. "Nathan's wife," she said, and she smiled a tired smile. "Soon to be ex-strings. Thought you might want what he kept in his office. Copies of contracts. Emails he printed because he thinks printers are confessional booths. I figured if the company doesn't bury him, you might." I looked at the box like a man looks at a match in a dry field. "Why bring it here?" I asked. Kayla shrugged. "Because I'm done being quiet," she said, "and because some people call it justice." She held my eyes. "I call it necessary." She put the box in my hands. It was heavier than it looked. Clay's box sat on the kitchen table like it was ticking. Mara stared at it as if opening it might change the air in the room. I didn't move. I've learned that the person who touches the evidence first owns it in the other person's eyes. Kayla leaned against the doorframe. "It's got a pattern, you know. Same moves, same arrogance. Just different names on the forms." I kept my tone neutral. "You have proof of that in here." She smirked. "You'll see." She pushed off the frame, ready to leave. "One more thing, when you start turning those over to the right people, don't tell them I gave them to you. Let them find me on their own. I want to look them in the eye when I tell my part." I nodded. "You'll get your turn." Mara's voice was small. "Kayla, why now?" Kayla looked at her like the answer was obvious. "Because, honey, you weren't the first, and I decided I'd rather be the last." Then she stepped into the night, her boots making a hollow sound on the wet walkway. The door clicked shut behind her. We just stood there, Mara and I, the box between us like a neutral country. "Open it," she said finally. "You should," I said. Her hands hovered over the lid, then dropped. "No. You do it." I peeled back the flaps. Inside was a chaos only corporate people would understand. 3-ring binders, manila folders, stapled packets with faded headers, sticky notes with cryptic initials, and beneath it all, a heavy leather portfolio. I pulled it out, the zipper worn smooth. Inside were printouts of emails, hundreds of them. Nathan's name at the top of most. Some were innocuous, meeting invites, project updates, but every so often the tone shifted. A forwarded invoice from the logistics shell company, a note to a mid-level procurement manager about fast-tracking an approval, a thank you from the vendor with an offer to meet off-site, and threaded through, messages to Mara, half flirty, half business, all evidence. I slid one across the table to her. "That's your work email," I said. She scanned it, color rising in her cheeks. "He copied me to make it look like I was part of it." "Or to make you part of it," I said. She dropped it like it was hot. "I didn't approve anything." "Doesn't matter," I said. In corporate politics, perception writes the first draft. Facts get added later if they still fit. Her hands trembled. "What do we do with this?" "We?" I said. She flinched, then steadied herself. "Fine. What do you do with this?" I stacked the printouts into 2 piles, personal and financial. First we scan, then we send the financials to outside counsel. The personal ones go to ethics and HR, and 1 copy goes to a safe deposit box that only I can open. She frowned. "Why keep them?" "Because people forget," I said, "and paper remembers." We worked in silence for 2 hours, the whir of the scanner filling the room like a distant fan. Every so often she'd slide a page my way with a quiet, "Look at this," and each time my list of Nathan's bad decisions grew longer. At midnight I sat back. "That's enough for tonight." Mara rubbed her eyes. "Do you think this will ruin him?" "Ruin is the wrong word," I said. "He'll land somewhere. People like him always do. But not here. Not now. Not in the way he wants." She looked at me for a long time. "You sound like you've done this before." "I have," I said. "Just never to someone I once let eat at my table." The next morning I sent a secure upload link to Peter and Alicia. I didn't tell them where it came from, just that new documentation relevant to both investigations was available. Within an hour, Peter replied, "Received, reviewing with forensic accounting team." By noon I got a second call from Alicia. "Mr. Hayes, this is significant," she said. "Some of these transactions weren't in our initial scope. We're expanding the review. Can you confirm the source? No, I said, not until they're ready to speak for themselves. She didn't press. Smart woman. At 3:17 p.m. Mara's phone buzzed. She looked at it. Then at me. Nathan's wife, she said. She's texting me. What'd she say? She said, don't thank me, just make it count. I smiled. Just a little. That's a woman who's done with storms. That night over leftovers, Mara asked. What happens to him now? Best case for him, I said. He negotiates a quiet exit package, signs a non-compete, and pretends he's consulting while he looks for his next victim. Worst case? The vendor probe pulls in law enforcement, and he starts using the word counsel in every sentence. And me? She asked. That depends on whether you want to be collateral damage or a witness. I said, you can't be both. She nodded slowly. Then I'll be a witness. Say it like you mean it, I said. I'll be a witness, she repeated louder this time. The next day, Peter called again. We're coordinating with law enforcement now, he said. Some of these vendor transactions cross state lines. That changes the stakes. How so? It's not just corporate anymore, he said. It's federal. I didn't say anything for a beat. Then I guess gravity just got heavier, I said, and for the first time in weeks, I actually believed it. The words "it's federal" sat in my head like a bell tone that doesn't fade. When problems cross state lines, they stop being an HR headache and start being an FBI file. Nathan wasn't just fighting an ethics committee anymore. He was standing in a current that could pull him under fast. At 7:45 the next morning, Mara shuffled into the kitchen in sweatpants and an oversized hoodie, clutching a mug. She looked like someone bracing for bad news. Even before I told her, "It's federal now," I said. Her grip tightened on the mug. "What does that mean for me?" "It means their questions are going to get sharper, and your answers have to get shorter." "I've told the truth," she said. "You've told your truth," I corrected. "Make sure it lines up with the paper truth." She opened her mouth, then closed it. I could see her trying to decide whether to fight me on that. She did. By 9 my phone rang again. "Peter, we need you and Miss Hayes in the same room this afternoon," he said. "The agents want to hear from both of you." "Agents?" I said, testing the word. "Plural?" "Yes, 2 from financial crimes. They'll be in on the call." "Where?" "Our downtown office," he said. "Conference room C, 1 p.m. I hung up and told Mara. She paled. "I've never talked to federal agents before." "You have," I said. "You just didn't know it. They look like accountants with better suits." At 12:40 we walked into Warden Cole's office. The reception smelled faintly of leather and copier toner. The woman in a navy skirt suit led us to a glass-walled conference room where Peter was already seated with a laptop open. Across from him, 2 people in dark suits, mid-40s, neutral expressions, the kind you get from years of hearing lies without blinking. Introductions were short. Agent Riley, Agent Chen. Chen started. "We're not here to accuse you," she said. "We're here to establish facts. The vendor relationship. When did you first become aware of it?" I told them exactly: the puff piece in the business journal, the shell company registration, the connection to Nathan. No flourishes. No speculation. Riley turned to Mara. "And you, did you know Mr. Cole had any ownership interest in that vendor?" "No," she said, meeting his eyes. "I didn't even know the vendor name until last week." "Did you benefit in any way from that vendor's contract?" "No," she said again. Chen clicked her pen once. "What about your housing? Did Mr. Cole arrange a guarantee for your apartment?" Mara hesitated just long enough for me to feel it in my teeth. "Yes," she said finally. "Through the relocation package. I didn't know it was a problem." "That's not for you to decide," Riley said, voice flat. "That's why policies exist." The rest of the questions were methodical. Dates, names, email subject lines. Every time Mara's voice wavered, I could see her fighting the instinct to explain. And every time I thought about how explanations are where liars hide. When it was over, Riley closed his notebook. "If we need more, we'll be in touch," he said. "In the meantime, don't delete anything. Don't contact Mr. Cole. And if he contacts you, document it." "Already doing that," I said. As we left, Peter caught my arm. "By the way," he said, lowering his voice, "that box you sent us? It's gold. But keep quiet about it. If the press gets wind, it could spook the vendors before we lock down their records." I nodded. "The source is silent." Back home, Mara went straight to the guest room. I heard the click of her laptop, the soft sigh of someone rereading their own emails with fresh eyes. I left her to it. At 5:12 p.m. my phone buzzed, unknown number. I answered. Mr. Hayes, the voice said low and tight. You don't know who you're messing with. Then tell me, I said. Silence for a beat. Then you think you can ruin me? I built this city's supply chain with my bare hands. Nathan, I said. You're going to regret this, he said. So is she. I hit record mid-call. Say that again, I said. Click. He hung up. I saved the file and forwarded it to Peter with the subject. Retaliation, documented. His reply was 2 words. Perfect. Thanks. At 7:03 Kayla texted me. He's been calling his old contacts. Sounds desperate. Might be planning to move money. Tell him nothing, I wrote back. Let him make his mistakes loud. By the end of the week we'd hear whether law enforcement was moving forward. But that night, the snow globe lit by a single lamp, I realized something. Nathan's career was already gone. He just didn't know it yet. And Mara, she was standing on a cliff she built herself, deciding whether to step back or keep going. The next step wasn't mine to take. But the next pull of gravity, that was coming, and I'd made sure it would be hard. By Monday morning the investigation had shifted from a quiet, polite inquiry into something that moved with purpose. You could feel it in the way people called, shorter sentences, fewer pleasantries, more "will follow up" in writing. At 9:12 a.m. Peter's name lit my phone. They've frozen his accounts, he said without preamble. Both personal and the shell company. Subpoenas went out Friday night. I leaned back in my chair. So the pulley's locked. More than that, Peter said. Federal investigators seized his work laptop from the company's IT vault this morning. He showed up at HQ trying to talk his way in and left with security escorting him to the sidewalk. I pictured Nathan in that cobalt suit walking out under the eyes of people he used to command, and felt the smallest flicker of satisfaction. He'll spin it as political, I said, or a conspiracy. Doesn't matter, Peter replied. He's finished here. He paused. Mara's name will appear in some of these documents, but from what we've seen so far it's clear she wasn't involved in the kickbacks. We'll recommend no further action against her. I didn't let relief show in my voice. I'll tell her. She was in the guest room when I knocked. Her laptop was open to a blank job application form. She looked up with guarded eyes. They're clearing you, I said. You're not part of the vendor mess. Her shoulders sagged. And the relocation? Gone, I said. You're on your own for housing. She nodded, almost like she'd been expecting it. I'll figure it out. I know you will, I said. I didn't add that figuring it out might mean swallowing pride she'd worn like armor for years. That afternoon, Kayla called. Her voice carried the strange calm of someone who's already stepped out of the fire. You might want to check the Seattle Records site, she said. The headline was blunt. Regional Director terminated amid federal vendor probe. The subhead was sharper. Sources cite undisclosed relationship. Housing assistance to subordinate. No names in print yet, but anyone in the industry would know. They didn't mention you, I told Mara. Yet, she said. By evening my phone rang again. Alicia from Ethics. The board's closing its review, she said. Thank you for your cooperation. Without your report, this might never have surfaced. Some people call it justice, I said. She hesitated, then replied, and you call it necessary. I remember. After dinner, Mara lingered in the kitchen doorway. I found a place, she said. Small studio. Month to month. You'll be okay? I asked. I don't know, she admitted, but I have to try. And I'm not taking shortcuts this time. We moved her things 2 days later. No shouting, no slammed doors. Just the sound of tape pulling from the roll and the occasional clink of dishes wrapped in newspaper. When the last box was in her car, she turned to me. I know you didn't do this for me, she said. No, I said. I did it for the truth. She nodded once, then drove off without looking back. The house felt bigger that night, but not empty. The snow globe sat in its usual place on the table. I picked it up, shook it once, and watched the flakes swirl around the frozen skyline. Nathan was gone. Mara was gone. And me? I was still here, breathing, steady, and holding the kind of silence that comes after you've said everything worth saying. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments.